The Absolute Guard Podcast.
Yes, welcome. This is episode 47. My name is Benny, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host John, who now seriously has a pocket Honda and is about to go on his own world tour. How you doing, John?
Pretty good. Yeah, I do have a pocket Honda. I've seen the light that character. Like I joke that character doesn't require any thought, but I found out that he plays very similar to a character that I played in Marvel 3. He plays a lot like Zero. And I also did not put a lot of thought when I played Zero. So I actually fit pretty well with him in weird ways.
Well, with Zero is what? Just throw Buster out, right? And Honda, it's what? Just throw Headbutt out?
Yeah. And then like quarter circle back with a command dash for Zero, he would fly up and then come down, and I would always come down with Pizza Cutter. And I remember, right. So it's very similar to Butt Slam, but specifically the mental state that I was in when I did that, I would call jam session, quarter circle back, I'd fly in the air, and then come down with Pizza Cutter. And I would do that when I was like, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm just going to make them deal with this, which is a very similar like mindset that I apply with Honda. And, you know, speaking of Honda, our guest today is KingHippo 42, and he is a fellow Honda player. So technically on this call, all three of us are Honda players, right?
Well, when John put out the bat signal, he said, he looked out and then he put his hand out like this. He said, "Where's the degenerate scum that plays Mortal Kombat?" And I was like, boy, do I. Because, I'm in there with Honda. I just do the basic stuff. I'm not trying hard at all. I heard it was easy for easy people. So, I answer the call when it's needed. Not all for capes.
Yeah. Honda is as our friend Zayden put it, is a Benny character in the past, because like I was very much more about kind of learning the game and not really, I guess, putting too much effort into learning my character. I was kind of, that's kind of just how I focused on playing games. Is like, that's how I felt was beneficial to me. Like I'm not a super technical guy, I'm not a super execution guy, and it's funny because like in Street Fighter 6, like he's a more complex character than he's ever been, I think, in the past.
In a weird way, he is, to me, he is actually more accessible because they got rid of the stupid hand mash thing, which I cannot do. As a technical player, I cannot do that consistently. And I like now he has like Karen Tenko where he can juggle and stuff. And I'm like, I like that stuff. That's the cool stuff. And I can... You know that clip from Family Guy where the Asian driver is driving and he's like, "Good luck, everybody else," and he does this and he cuts into traffic and does whatever he wants. That's how I feel with Honda, where I'm like, "Good luck, dude. Whatever. Good luck, my opponent. Whatever happens, I'm probably gonna come out on top." But and so a lot of I'm trying to find a decent segue into Mortal Kombat here, and I can't think of one off the top of my head. And then Tanner gave me one at the start here, but basically, one of the Tanner and I and Benny and whatnot, we've done a lot of Street Fighter 6 conversations on the Absolute Guard podcast, and there's a lot of parallels with Street Fighter 6's parry mechanic compared to Mortal Kombat's blocking system. And initially, what kind of like brought us together and talking about this, because coming from Capcom and NRS and a bunch of different backgrounds from fighting games, was talking about Street Fighter 6, and it just seems like it's a natural evolution for us to now talk about Mortal Kombat 1. Just to kind of date our podcast here, I think the stress test was about 2 weeks ago, I think.
Sounds about right.
And I don't know anybody in our state who was part of that except for KingHippo 42. You got the in, man.
Yeah. Well, it's when I saw it, I only saw it briefly. I didn't even know it was going up until I saw it on Facebook, and I immediately applied. And I apply on Xbox all the time because I know I'll get it. because I'm the only sicko that plays on Xbox Series X. And
Oh,
naturally I got it. So, I was happy for that.
Wow.
Cool.
And like you have like a relationship with the developers too. Like you've gone and like actually seen how the game is made and gotten some behind the scenes conversations with them too, right?
Well, not necessarily. I would say that one of their lead devs, who you'll see whenever they do the combat cast, and you see Stephanie Brownback. Stephanie, probably one of my very, very best friends. We've known each other for a decade plus. Goes way back to like the MK9 competitive days. So that is, if I have an in, that's my in. But we don't really talk shop necessarily, but I have met a lot of the developers. A lot of the developers there now, like one of their lead designers is Aaron Davis, who used to play competitively. He won Combo Breaker for Mortal Kombat X, went by Dizzy.
Oh, wait, Dizzy works for NRS now?
He is a lead designer. He's one of the top designers. He designed some of the characters. So,
oh wow, that's really cool.
And then other players like Big D, Dragon have gone on there now. QA devs there. So a lot of the competitive, pretty high level guys have moved on to be working there. And Stephanie and Aaron are definitely some of the higher ups that now they actually have big time roles that used to be competitive players. So there's actually a lot more, the pipeline, there used to be like a Capcom to developer pipeline, and that also exists a lot in Tekken. We see like Unconquerable now as a role in a lot of stuff. And of course, that guy that hangs out with Harada and translates for him. I can't remember his name, but he does like a lot of
something. Yeah,
he does stuff like that. So it actually in the NRS scene there is that too. Believe it or not, it's just a little bit more low key. They're not as big as like they're not trying to make a name for themselves on social media or anything. They just kind of do their job. But you'll see them pop up. Especially with the combat cast coming back up. And for example, Aaron designed in Mortal Kombat 11 the characters Aaron Black, Jackie Briggs, and Geras. So a lot of people probably hate him for that because they were top tier. But that's how it goes. And
yeah,
I actually did talk to one of the developers at when I was at the MK11 reveal event, and he kind of elucidated to me their mentality for designing, which is what looks cool, what from the mocap sessions could you make look cool, and also that they change who designs what character a lot of times on every new game. So you get like fresh ideas for characters. So they never really want to keep going back to the same stuff beyond iconic moves. They always want a fresh take on the character. So a lot of times, and we'll get into that later, but that speaks to like Mortal Kombat's usual legacy of we kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater and let's start anew on every new iteration of the franchise.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned MK9 for like the uninformed was kind of like the resurgence of the franchise, I guess, even from like a competitive standpoint. Like I don't honestly remember personally anything going on really before that. No. But when that came out, like I wasn't super heavy into Mortal Kombat. Like I've always been a Street Fighter guy, right? And I remember when MK1 was in the arcades, like the original MK1, right? And digitized graphics and all that stuff. It just looked odd to me, right? I'm used to seeing animations, and here's this kind of like crude full motion video type stuff going on, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then the big draw was the blood, and then like Mortal Kombat 2 came out. I was more into that. I think that was more my intro. Like I got a rude awakening playing some friends casually at their place one time, because it's like I knew how to do like basic like kind of like ground footsie type things. And my friend was playing like Scorpion and doing like these air juggles, and I was like, this kind of stuff's possible in this game? I was just like, I had no idea. Like he opened my eyes to all kinds of stuff. So I had some history. Probably I think that's probably the one I played the most before MK9 came out. I know a lot of people their favorite was MK3 or Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3
trilogy.
Yeah.
My main experience with Mortal Kombat is Mortal Kombat 2 on the Game Boy. That is what I owned as a kid.
Game Boy.
I played the Game Boy version of Mortal Kombat 2. And
I had the MK3 Game Boy port, which was also bad.
Okay. I was going to say that's probably better, but I guess not.
Not much better if it is. Yeah.
And then Mortal Kombat 9 came out, and I'll be honest, I didn't give it a try, but one of my friends, Angelic, did, and he won the launch tournament, and I remember he won a big scorpion statue.
Yeah, we talked about that on this episode.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of basically between the Game Boy and that is the only there was a big gap for Mortal Kombat.
That's a huge gap because MK9 came out in 2011, and I remember that because like I was kind of excited for it. We hadn't seen Mortal Kombat in a while. I played Katana back in 2. I didn't really play 3, and then like I played Katana in 9, and I even entered Evo for that. Like I had back in the day, I had one of the, the Plexis and the custom arcade sticks, and my characters on it were Honda, Hulk, and then Katana. That was on my stick. So um, yeah, I played Katana and MK9 at Evo 2011, and then um, the thing I remember about that, I think I went 2-2. I won my first 2 matches, and then I ran into the very famous Chris G and lost to him, who eventually got 5th place. So like for me, that was my first Evo. So like losing to him, like I didn't have anything to be ashamed of. I was like, oh, how'd your tournament run go to? I was like, oh, I lost to the guy that won 5th place playing Reptile. I was just like, oh, okay. It's like, there's nothing to be ashamed of at all. So
Sure.
and fun fact, Mortal Kombat 9 is the only fighting game tournament that I won when I was in Alaska. Like I won nothing else. That was the only
wow.
one, and it was like some weird play and trade, like because our scene kind of dropped off pretty quickly with that game, and I found out Play and Trade was hosting a tournament, right? Our local Play and Trade. So I was like, you know what? Anybody going here? And like everybody that I knew was just like, no, nobody's going. I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go by myself. And I go in there, and there's 4 other people in there. And I walk in, I'm the only one with a stick. And like I have all this pressure on me because I'm just like, man, these guys probably think, what is this guy doing? Like, they're playing on pads, and this guy comes in with an arcade stick. I was just like, but I did end up winning that little 5-man tournament. But that was the only thing that I ever won there.
Nice. You got you got to take your wins where you get them.
Yeah, exactly.
But you'll be glad to know, Benny, I did avenge you because I did beat Chris G's Reptile in a tournament at SCR 2013.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So.
And so, just because we're kind of recapping the history of Mortal Kombat here, or the modern Mortal Kombat. So we had 9, and then Mortal Kombat X, I believe, is
2015.
2015. Okay,
Yeah.
and then I apologize. Is Mortal Kombat 1, is that Mortal Kombat 11, or is that
that's
Mortal Kombat 11
11
is Mortal Kombat 11.
There is a Mortal Kombat 11. Okay,
yeah,
I'm
came out
showing
in
how much I
2019.
know. Yeah,
Yeah, because I did some basic research, and it's funny you brought up the reveal event for MK11 because Tanner was at that. He did a feature for I Play Winner at the time.
I did, yeah.
Very cool.
So yeah, he's got some history with the game. I don't remember like who did you main from like MK9 and then through the last 3 games.
So in MK9, I was definitely I played Kenshi,
Okay,
and because he was really really good. I would most people would say he's second best character. I think that's pretty accurate. Just ridiculous character, and so I had fun with him. He wasn't so hot in MKX, so and I wasn't a huge fan of MKX competitively. I liked it, plenty on my own. I would say in that I played around with a lot of characters. Liu Kang was probably the one I played the most. And then in 11, I kind of have bounced back and forth between a few characters. Like lately, I was at last Evo I played, I used Rambo. And as MK has, MK has increasingly become Smash Brothers for your dad.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I forgot about all those guest characters because they had Terminator in there, RoboCop, the Predator.
Yeah.
TMNT
was in Injustice 2. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Damn it. I made that same mistake last time we talked about it.
I mean, can you imagine TMNT and Mortal Kombat? Like, you got to murder them. Like, they're not going to do that. Nickelodeon's got to sign off on, like, can we have Devora, like, inject Donatello with a bug thing that his head comes off? And they'd be like, no.
Yeah, even if they did, then you'd have, like, PETA coming down their neck, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just not a good look. Not a good look, I don't think.
Yeah.
But the Injustice, is a bloodless game. It's more fun. That's fine. Yeah.
That's the big thing, is that even though we talk about 9, 10, and 11 as if they came sequentially, you had Injustice and Injustice 2 spaced in between them.
And it's actually important to mention those because I think that actually plays a huge factor in MK1.
Mm-hmm.
So Injustice, the lessons learned from the Injustice series, I think, are definitely at play in Mortal Kombat 1 as well. So I think it's definitely important to mention. I happen to like Injustice 2 probably the most of like the modern NRS games. I think that's their best game.
Okay.
I loved Injustice 1 a lot too. I had the most success competitively that I've ever had with that game, and it was just a lot of fun. It was pretty uneven for a long period of time, but I think it kind of evened out into a pretty decent game. And then Injustice 2 totally blew that away. Like, it was the best version of that style of game. And like I said, I think a lot of that has actually come into MK1, but we'll talk about that as we get into Mortal Kombat 1.
Okay, cool. In terms of like MK11, what do you think was the biggest kind of like criticisms for the game from like the competitive standpoint or just like the general public?
Well, it's hard because, trying to get like the competitive criticisms is like, it's like pulling teeth because the people that play Mortal Kombat's like this weird where the only people that play it are like 45-year-old schizos and literal children, and then there's not a good mix in between. It's you only have those two groups, and they're not the most conducive to like having a nuanced conversation about like game design and stuff like that. So it can be tough sometimes to really nail down like, well, what do people actually think, and what is just people like being their natural self, being either the 45-year-old schizo or the child, and just going online and being that. But I would say, if I had to guess, I would definitely say nobody liked the breakaway mechanic. So in the game, MK, as far back as like the 3D games like Deadly Alliance and stuff, has had a breaker mechanic where you can kind of break yourself out of a combo.
Yeah.
And in MKX, they had it. And then in MK11, they decided to kind of go. And even in Injustice, they had the Clash, which was in the second round, you could break out of a combo and spend your meter to get out. So they've always had a breaker style mechanic. But in MK11, they wanted to go a different route. They ended up with this thing called Breakaway. The breakaway, you fell out of a combo, literally. Like your character spirals down to the ground if they're in the air. You can only do it in the air. So if you're in the air, you got to spiral down to the ground, and your character has armor as they fall. So they don't take as much damage as they fall. The problem was you could quite literally mash it out as soon as you started to get launched. And because MK11, MK just being a Mortal Kombat game has dial a combo string. So you're kind of in for a whole ride when you start dialing it in. So a lot of times you would do a combo and somebody would break out of it. And even though they fell to the ground and stuff, you'd still be doing your combo string and you could get up and get punished. It wasn't.
You get punished for getting broken. Okay.
For getting broken. Yeah. So then to try and mitigate that, it was first when Spawn first came out. There's another character for your dad, Spawn. He had a move. One of his moves actually broke armor, and it broke breakaway armor. So basically, if you did it on a break, when someone broke away, he would launch them when he did it. Then he normally wasn't able to do that. So he was the first character, and then eventually every character got a quote unquote an armor break move. So it's like if you did it while someone broke away. Now some of them sucked. In fact, a lot of them were not very good. It's usually like a single hit move that like did a lot of damage, but otherwise sometimes would just be like, okay, I didn't break away, but I didn't really suffer that much. And I would think it cost like, and in MK11, instead of having like a traditional 3 or 4 bar like meter system, they had 2 bars each for attack and defense. And they it was like drive gauge. It kind of came back on its own, and it only cost the 2 defensive gauge to break away. So it was like, you kind of got it at least twice a game, and you didn't really have to worry about like giving up like quote unquote resources to do it.
Okay.
So I never really liked it to begin with, and I don't think even adding the armor breakers really fixed the issue with it. So I would say number 1, that's the biggest thing. Number 2 is I think they tried to really go back to basics. So they dialed down a ton of the characters' combo strings, and they still had the variation system from MKX, but it was even more strict than MKX was. So I think a lot of people felt like there was a sort of dumbing down or like less strings, less combo. It was definitely less combo stuff because a lot of times your variation choice was either the one with the launcher or the one with goofy shit. And everyone was going to pick the one with the launcher. So there was sort of a feeling. And even when they added it, that you could pick your variation and like make with your own moves. Like on the character select screen, you pick your moves.
Yeah.
It's still people were going to pick the launcher. And if you had a command grab, you'd pick the command grab. Like everybody was going to do that. And so I think people felt like there was like a little bit less variety in the combo options, and it was a little bit less fun when, MK9 and MKX definitely had wacky combos, and Injustice does as well. So I would say those are the 2 biggest criticisms: the sort of simplified combo system and the breakaway mechanic being kind of meh.
That sounds so much like like Mortal Kombat 11 sounds like the Street Fighter 5 of Mortal Kombat.
That's what I was gonna say too. Yeah,
you dumbed it down and you added new mechanics that devalue the game to a lot of people.
I mean every MK has its haters. I mean, some people think MKX is like I don't like MKX. Some people think MKX is the devil. It happens. It happens every game. But MK11. MK11 has been the longest lasting competitive just because of the added on years of the pandemic. So like it came out most times MK because they're a AAA development studio who actually makes games every couple years. So most of the time you have like a 2-year cycle and they've got a new game out. But since 2019, obviously things have slowed down a lot. So MK11 is still it's at Evo again. It's still kicking. People still play it. But I think everybody's ready for something new. So
I think to rewind slightly here. I think that as an outsider in the fighting game community, but not as part of the NRS community, I I feel like NRS's biggest contributions to the global fighting game community, or the competitive fighting game community rather, is it got us ready for patch culture, and that they were the ones who kind of took a lot of the initial lumps as far as how often do we patch, what do we patch, what are players looking for, do we give them what they want, or like even the breaker system is a good example where it's like, okay, let's experiment with spawn to see if we can address an issue, and then that worked, let's apply it to everybody, like give everybody the same tool. Like Dragon Ball followed that same kind of pattern too with Bardock, and Street Fighter V followed that pattern too with each subsequent DLC character. Ultimately, like you additively addressing the issues of the game, and I think that a lot of that spawns from NRS's frankly their resources as a AAA developer as well, to be able to patch regularly
to afford it
quickly. Yeah.
Yes, that's definitely big. Yeah, because I remember MK9 was like, I remember that was one of the first games where like for the first few months it was, it was Helltown. It was there was Cyrax has an infinite, but now he doesn't. And Sonya used to have this infinite, now she doesn't. And then this and that, and now we've added armor when there was no armor before. It was nuts. It was crazy. And usually the first year of a game, of NRS game, is kind of like that now. You just kind of expect, and even like a lot of fighting games, you just expect, okay, we're gonna get the month 1 patch with the DLC character. We're gonna get the month 4 patch and all that stuff. So yeah, they were one of the first to really do it a lot. Yeah. And it has its pluses and minuses. I really don't think they listen too much to competitive players, and I think that's a good thing. I think they're pretty set with doing their own thing. They are open in the sense of like, they have a community manager and stuff like that. But these guys, they're developers with a long history, very confident in what they do. They appreciate the feedback, but I think they're not like, we're gonna, because I don't think they're as interested in like the competitive integrity of this game long term, that kind of stuff. I don't think they're as super interested in. They do care about like, because there's a lot more going on than just the gameplay stuff. But there's a whole economy in the game with all the stuff, all the towers of time and all that stuff. That a lot of that gets, if you look at the patch notes every time, there's a ton of bug fixes related to that stuff, which is to them just as important as the balance stuff.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times too, it seems like they've got this idea, like the spawn thing is a great example. Probably that was the intent a long time ago, was to have every character have an armor break move, but reality it sets in, and this is our dev cycle. This is what we can get into each patch. It probably won't come until later, but we've had this in mind for a long time.
Right.
Same with the variations being able to be picked on the screen. I'm sure they wanted to do that a long time ago, but they had to get the art to be able to design the UI to make it work. That takes 7 months. Then they got to get it through certification. So there's a lot of stuff like that at play. I don't like, and I think it's good too to like, because competitive players are super
fickle.
That's one way to put it. I say fickle and corrupt, because they ultimately they want to win. They want to win more than anything, and they hate losing.
Yeah.
So like when you lose to something, it doesn't really, the rationality of like why you lost to it doesn't really settle in. It's just you don't like it.
Yeah, exactly.
And people change their minds constantly.
Yep.
I mean, for God's sakes, have you ever heard some of the things that people say? Like, have you heard a Blanca player talk? It's insane.
Oh yeah.
So you gotta, I think it's good to, because KI learned this the hard way. They were very open with all their community. The community spat in their mouth every chance they could get, because they're competitive. They just want to win. It's not really a matter of like, well, we have to take all this into account. They don't. Why would they care about any of that? So there is that. But I do think, I think the patch, they've patched the game a lot. You can expect balance changes to happen, and they've also mastered here's the DLC pack. Here's all the characters this is what you're going to get for the year.
Yep.
Now everybody's starting to copy them. Street Fighter 6, they didn't even mess around. They're like, here's your first 6 characters. Here's your first 4 or 5 characters.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that they are not only, NRS games are not only the most financially successful traditional fighting game genre, traditional fighting game. They're also the most successful Western one specifically. And what that does is it takes the Western ideals and Western development practices, such as like all the season pass stuff and the patches and the community management stuff, and it forced all the Japanese developers to basically do the same thing. It took them like a console generation, in my opinion, to actually catch up.
Yeah, exactly.
But KI and NRS, I think in particular, really pushed that envelope.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said that with Street Fighter, like that's something that Capcom typically didn't do. Like they'd wait till their next version of the game, unless it was something game breaking, and then that's when you would see all the changes. But nowadays, like you might see a character release, like Rashid's coming out here in a couple weeks, and you might see maybe some alterations to some moves that maybe they weren't expecting to be overpowered. You know what I mean? So
Even Ultra Street Fighter 4, everybody talks about, like, it was the final game in the Street Fighter 4 series, but a lot of people like Arcade Edition better, or Super better, and Ultra was crowdsourced, where Combo Fiend basically just took everybody's input and like asked all the mains of their characters for suggestions, and then kind of went through that, and then you get DJ in Ultra. You know, so it doesn't work.
No,
the community doesn't know what they're talking about half the time.
Yeah, it's tough, and I also think, like, you could tell. So like in Street Fighter 5, when the game first came out, they did the very, we're gonna secretly announce who's the next character every month, maybe, you never know. And then when the Champion Edition, I think it was the Champion Edition came out, they were like, okay, here's a CG trailer with all the characters that are coming out. Here's Sakura, here's Blanca, here's Cody. Like, they didn't even mess around, which is what NRS does. You'll see they'll have a big CG trailer and there's all the characters fighting or something like that, right? So you know who's coming. It might be a little bit staggered, like month by month, but you know what's coming, so you can buy it and feel like, okay, I know what I'm going to get. And the balance changes are like, they're a little spice in between.
Yeah. So in terms of like MK1, was there anything in particular that you were looking forward to in that game from like any of the preview stuff or trailers that you'd seen?
Well, the big thing I was really looking forward to, because we only had a CG trailer. We had the gameplay reveal at the Summer Games Fest, where we really got to see what was going on. And even then, it was still, we were kind of keeping the cameo system, which is like their assist system. That was the big thing they wanted to show off. So I was definitely interested in that, but I was interested to see what they were going to do with how meter was handled, because in MK11 it was on a refill gauge, and so I was surprised to see they're back to the what is now traditional 3-bar MK9 style meter, and so that is back, as is the traditional breaker. And so I was not expecting that, so I was happy to see that, because I've always liked breaker. I think it's a great idea. And so I really was interested to see how they did that. And the other thing that was, now it's been like a staple for the past couple of games, so I'm kind of surprised to see it gone, is usually in Mortal Kombat games more recently, what you could do is some characters had what they'd call like a meter burn move. So it's like you do the move and then you tap right bumper, and that adds the quote unquote meter burn. So it does a new move that spends your meter, and then like you get a combo or something like that. Now it's back to how it was in MK9, where you have to press meter burn button, the meter button and the attack button at the same time.
Got it.
Actually, in MK9 it was block, so you do block and the attack at the same time, and that would give you like an EX move, what we would consider an EX move.
So it's the difference in commitment then, versus like you could hit confirm into a meter burn combo in the most recent iterations of the game, but in 9 and I guess in 1 here you have to commit hard to actually use the bar.
100%. Like a lot of times you'll see most people, the way they use it is like you could throw like a fireball and then kind of wait like a couple frames and then hit meter burn, and you throw out like a mid or an overhead fireball after that, and it's like that's like the mix up, right? So that's definitely a big sea change. That's different than how it's been for a little while. So that was pretty interesting too.
Okay, cool. And then you mentioned the cameo characters. So those kind of play like they're like an assist, right?
Yes.
Kind of like the thing I kept on thinking about was the like Marvel versus Capcom Clash of Heroes was Colossus. And like I remember seeing like tournament footage for that, right?
Yeah.
And all you see is Colossus. Everybody plays like the Colossus assist except for like 2 people. I don't know. Every time I saw a stream, it was always Colossus was coming in diagonally and then he was just leaving the screen. And so the cameos in Mortal Kombat 1 are similar in that sense, right? So they're strictly just as assist. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that's actually Marvel's Capcom 1 is like the perfect comparison, right? Because you pick your character and then you pick a cameo. Like you go to another selection screen and there's a list of cameos, just like in MVC 1 when you pick your character and then there's another screen for your assist. Now there's a little bit different. So they kind of take it from, and this is for people who ever played the single players of the Mortal Kombats, there's always like wacky modifiers you can put in the towers. And one of them is you can call in a character and you flick the right stick and it gives you a new move. The character comes in and does a move. Now that was in the towers. That's kind of how cameos work in this game. So depending on the direction, or if you just press it neutrally, they come in and do a move. Yeah. And there are different types of moves, and they're also attached to your throw, your front throw, and your breaker. They are necessary to do both of those things. So if you don't have it ready to go, you can't do a forward throw and you can't break.
You can't throw if you don't have your assist?
Forward throw. You can back throw.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Back throw is in MK. Back throw, if you press 1 and 3, which is X and A, that's the default is a back throw.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, if your cameo, no matter who you pick, always does the forward throw for you. So like if you pick Kano, no matter what, he comes in and does the forward throw. If you don't
Yeah.
have him ready, if he's on cooldown, you just do like this shove. So you can
Does
throw
Okay.
people technically, but it's a shove that doesn't do much damage.
does the throw
Oh,
have any
okay.
variance depending on the character? Then
Depending
like
on the cameo, it looks different.
okay, does
Okay.
it does
And
it
you know the Oki situation might be different. I'm not sure.
okay.
Okay, so that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought like the thing because I didn't look at a lot of like gameplay footage beforehand, but I did tune into that the combat cast right briefly,
Mhm.
and that was the most interesting thing to me because like I saw like the footage with Johnny Cage and Kung Lao, and I thought it was hilarious the way Kung Lao was coming in, and like
Teleport.
they don't give Johnny Cage a teleport, right? Kung Lao jumps into the screen, he grabs Johnny Cage, he
Like Buzz
jumps in the
Lightyear.
air, then the teleport, yeah, then the teleport comes underneath him, and then they go both in there, and then he comes out and like carries Johnny Cage through, and I
Yeah.
thought that was great.
That was interesting. That was the first because I figured, just based on what I played in the stress test, that there was going to be 3 different tiers of assists, and they were kind of all going to do the same thing. But that one, when I saw the Kung Lao one with the teleport, and
Mhm.
Scorpion has one that they showed in the trailer where Scorpion does his spear, and he pulls you back. So you come here, and he pulls you back, and you have armor. So it's like a retreat with armor that he
Ah,
pulls you back out of harm's way, which
Oh,
which
it's
is
a
really
it's a
funny.
mobility assist then.
Yeah, so he pulls you way back and you have armor,
Oh.
so like you can get out of dodge, whatever with it.
Oh
oh,
wow.
that's pretty
Okay.
So
awesome. Yeah, because I
there,
did see like the variations too, like like Kung Lao had the teleport, and then the other thing was like the hat,
low hat.
yeah, the low hat, yeah.
Yeah.
So I did see some of the variations in that, which I think is cool. So that definitely adds some variety besides the Colossus shoulder tackle coming in.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now my guess is there's gonna be like a best attack because they all have 3 attacks, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's 2 different types. I think they call them an assault one and a summon one. So
Okay.
an assault one is one that you can do pretty much anytime you're not laying down. So like mid jump, mid throw, you can call them, and they come out and do the move no matter what. Then there's
Oh.
ones that are like they come out and your character steps to the side and they do something, and then they come back into the fray and fight. So, like for example, Sonya has her normal one. If you just press RB, she comes
Mhm.
out and does what's called a square wave, which is where like this leaping uppercut like that.
Yeah.
And you can call that pretty much any time. So you can do things like wacky things like combo up. You do an uppercut, an MK style uppercut. You can combo after that if you call her, even when you're in
Ah,
recovery. So you can combo off an uppercut. That's pretty nuts.
yeah.
But then she has another one where she does her leg flip, where she does a cartwheel and grabs you with her legs and flips you backwards.
Yeah.
Now your character gets out of the way while she does that, but it is a launcher. So some characters, for example, can't get a launching move from their jab strings, but you can do jab jab call Sonya, and while you do step aside, it still combos when she does the leg flip, and it
Ah,
ground bounces you, so you can do a combo. But also, they have special properties when you get up as a get up attack. That's what they call like a wake up attack. So, like
mhm.
Sonya, if you do the leg flip, there is a window of invulnerability, but when you do it, she doesn't bounce you. You don't get a combo, but it is a
Oh,
wake
okay.
up attack that you can try and do.
Okay.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
So
Yeah.
my versus game background is tingling hearing all this stuff because
Yeah,
there's always a
pretty
lot of
interesting.
traps what you run into with team games, right? Where you have like the game can devolve into just pick the best assist, the game can devolve into just pick the best shell, and more, even in Marvel versus Capcom, as Benny mentioned, it's just that's
Pick
pick
Colossus.
Colossus, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And but what's unique about this game is that it's not a team game. It's a 1v1, and then you happen to have an assist that essentially acts as an extension of your character. And so
Mhm.
this acts almost as a balance mechanic where you can be like, I think Scorpion's weakness is X, Y, and Z, and so I'm gonna bring in Sonya or somebody else, or like maybe like you play a heavy grappler or something, right? And or like let's take it back, a zoner. You play a zoner, and you're like, I'm gonna just try to keep them out at all times, and then they get in, and you call Scorpion, and he pulls your ass out of there, and it's
Mhm.
like, so you have ways to augment your your character's strengths or cover your character's weaknesses with your cameo choice. And
Yes.
that's fascinating to me because
Yeah. It's
that
yeah.
that doesn't degenerate the game like some assists do in other versus games, but instead it
Yeah.
allows the 1v1 game to like the characters to be more complete, so to speak, and it makes it easier on the devs to not have to balance around giving every character every tool. They can deliberately withhold tools and force you to use a specific cameo instead.
They can. They didn't choose to do that in MK1, to be clear, because one of the first things I noticed was the characters have like full long move lists again. So we've been stuck in kind of the variation mode for MKX and MK11. So characters will have like one variation has a couple moves, the other one has a couple moves. So you're losing moves between variations a lot of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in MK11, you obviously only had 3 slots, so you'd have to lose a move no matter what. Now they don't care about any of that. So Sub-Zero has like 6, 7 special moves. It's nuts. He's had more special moves than he's had in like 10 years. He's got the ice ball and the slide, classic. Got to have those. Yeah. Now he's got a new projectile, a mid projectile where he punches his fist and a clone of him comes out, and it comes out and it hits mid. So unlike his ice ball, which is a duckable high fireball, this one is a mid fireball. It also, for the first time I've ever seen, clashes like a Street Fighter fireball. So if it runs into another projectile, the two cancel out.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. So what you can do is lull someone into doing that and canceling out, and then you throw the ice ball, which goes through projectiles and freezes you. So Sub-Zero
so
traditionally traditionally on a trade, Sub-Zero wins with ice ball all the time, but it's a lot slower in this game. So you have to condition people with the mid and then do that one. He's also got this new ground freeze where he kind of throws ice spikes on the ground and it stops you in place for a sec. That is like his main combo starter. He's got a dive kick, an ice dive kick. Yeah, he just has, way more moves. His clone is back. He has clone again, which he hasn't had for a little while. So yeah, he's full of moves. And, same thing with Kitana and Kenshi especially. Kenshi has a ton of moves. So most characters now have all the same moves that they might have had in a previous MK game before the variation stuff set in. So the characters feel fully like they got a lot of juice. It's just the assists add wackiness on top of that.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
In terms of the characters, like who was available for you to play in the stress test, like the main characters?
Okay, so there was only 4. It was Sub-Zero, main character. There's 4 characters. Sub-Zero, Kenshi,
Kitana was one. Yeah.
Kitana and Sub-Zero, Kitana, Kenshi,
Scorpion?
Liu Kang.
Liu Kang, okay.
And then you had 3 cameos. It was MK1 Kano, MK1 Sonya, and MK2 Jax.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. So there's different versions of the character as well. So is there an MK1 Jax as well?
Well, Jax is not an MK1 fool.
Oh,
so
sorry.
I'm just kidding. But,
that's fair.
I don't. So I think what they're doing with if you look at you dunce, you clod.
I'm getting like old Sagat versus Newton.
So if you look at the trailers and stuff, the cameos for the long part, I think they're the story. I won't talk about the lore too much. Basically, the concept of MK1 is that Liu Kang at the end of MK11 he merged with Raiden. Him and them they did a fusion dance.
Oh,
and he is now the fire god Liu Kang. Raiden gave up his immortality, gave it to Liu Kang. They beat Kronika, the big bad, who was going to reset time. And he said, Liu Kang, the timeline is now yours to redo. I will step back from being a god. You are now a god. You fix time how you see fit. So Liu Kang has basically redone Mortal Kombat's timeline. So now there's new things. For example, Scorpion and Sub-Zero are now brothers. Like like blood brothers, and they're in the same clan, whereas before they were obviously in rival clans.
Yeah, rival clans. Yeah.
Raiden is now just a monk with electric powers. He is not a god. So there's a lot of changes there. Melina is now actually the queen of Outworld, and she has a disease, macular disease, that makes her teeth come out crazy. And Kitana is like her sister, but is also her she's not princess or anything like that. So there's differences in the story, but that plays into the cameos because the cameos are like a Rolodex of MK past. So MK1 Sonya, MK1 Kano, MK2 Jax. It's like their first appearance. They've also recently revealed Stryker from MK3 with his dumb hat and his Jerry curl. He comes in. Cyrax and Sector look like they do in MK3, who are also cameo characters. Kung Lao from MK2.
Yep.
So even though he's playable in the game, he is a cameo. And MK1 Scorpion and MK1 Sub-Zero are also cameos.
Oh, okay. Because I thought that was interesting because the things that I heard initially about the cameos was that if a character was a cameo, they were not going to be available as a main. So I saw a lot of social media discourse in terms of like the people were worried about their characters coming up as a cameo because then they were like, oh man, that they're just going to be an assist and that's all they're going to be in the game. So to find out that Kung Lao is both a main character and also a cameo, that I guess that that bodes well for a lot of people that
Yeah.
were going to be supposedly disappointed. 'Cause
As
they were like,
our
oh no, Cyrex
yeah.
is a cameo. Like I'm not going to be able to play him, but
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
don't know
Sub-Zero
now.
and Sub-Zero and Scorpion are also cameos. So
Yeah.
anything could happen. And they also have announced that as part of their season pass, not only will it be characters, but also cameo characters. So they will keep adding new cameo characters
Oh my god.
as the game goes, which will be fun to play around with for sure.
Yeah.
But back to the game. So you had those 3 cameos, you had the 4 characters, and you could pick either one. You know, you could pick whatever cameo. And there was obviously some that were better suited. Like for example, Sub-Zero, I thought benefited a lot from Sonya because his slide is really fast as a combo ender, and he could always extend combos to the very last minute with Sonya. Also, his reversal on Wake Up is his slide, his EX slide, which has armor. If he does that and calls Sonya at the same time, he can actually combo off of it. Because when you normally fly over him with the slide, it's and it's a knockdown. But if you call Sonya and you happen to get hit in the air, he can just keep comboing. Because MK is very freeform, has always been very freeform with juggles. So anytime you're in the air, they just add gravity scaling. But anyway, everything connects. So as long as you're high enough in the air, it'll work.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So when you say gravity scaling, you mean that like they will fall faster if
Yes, the more
like,
hits they do, the faster they fall. And and there's wacky things like if you end a combo with an uppercut in the corner and they're super low to the ground, they will just literally fly out of the corner onto the other side. So there's funny things like that. So you can't like end an uppercut and get the huge knockdown advantage. They thought of that. But yeah, that's generally how it works. So anytime you get him in the air, so it's a character like Sub-Zero, if he happens to slide his OD slide, which has armor, and then you call at the same time, he'll get a combo, which is not something you're normally supposed to do. He has strings that are like it's a low, or a low mid, and the low is like a sliding, a knockdown. It's like, a double mix-up string. Well, now you can combo after it, right? So it's not just a mix-up string. Now it could be your life. A lot of damage. And that's just kind of the feel of MK, 1 is like there's these little things that you're like, oh, yeah, cool. It's an overhead low mix-up, but the low is just a knockdown. The overhead can combo, but the low is just a knockdown. Well, not anymore. It's actually a combo starter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to like what John said in terms of like, making up for your deficiencies and stuff like that, right? Like maybe you weren't able to do this with, just by yourself, but pick the right cameo and all of a sudden like you have access to all these new tools or these new combo routes and things like that.
100%. So example is Katana. She has a really good projectile, her fans. She can do it in the air too. Problem is it only does a little bit of damage, and characters can kind of move in on you slowly while you do them. But if you get Jax's right bumper attack is his ground pound, and his ground pound is an unblockable for both characters. So if you're on the ground, you get hit too. Now you don't take as much damage as the opponent does, but you take the hit. Now Katana, her main style of zoning is to throw her fans in the air. So you can throw air fans and you won't get hit by the ground pound, but if someone ducks it, they will get hit by the ground pound. So there's really no way to run. So you can just keep doing that, and you could even do like in the corner, let's say you're Liu Kang and you do a big juggle. At the end, you call Jax and you jump up, you neutral jump and you jump kick as they get up. So if they do an armored move, they hit your jump kick. But Jax comes in with the unblockable. You can't block it, and you're back into a combo again for another 35% or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of you can only call an assist twice pretty much before it has to go on cooldown. So there's limits to it. There's a little bar right below your health bar, so you'll see like if it's on cooldown or not. But that's genuinely how it works. You get like 2 uses right away, and then it'll cool down a little bit, and then you can get it back.
Does anything affect the cooldown? Like if you get hit or anything, or if you block?
I think if they come out and they get hit, you'll see them flash red, and I think that means they're on like an extended kind of cooldown.
There's a penalty. Okay.
There's a penalty. Okay. Yeah. And I think you take counter hit damage. Like if they get hit while you get hit, you take more damage during a combo. I believe that's the case.
Wow.
Oh, okay. So it's almost a similar like a happy birthday kind of situation, right?
Kind of, except for it's you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, because you have to be careful because some characters, like Kano, for example, one of his is he comes out and he starts his Kano ball, his Blanca ball, but you can hold it. So he'll spin in place doing the ball until you let go. So what you can do is you could call him like walk forward with a special or something and do like, obviously unsafe special. They start hitting you, you let go, he flies out and, hits them. And now you're kind of safe, because and the Kano ball hits mid. So it's like, they have to stop and block the ball or, stop hitting you or else they'll get hit.
Yeah, so like you can Buster.
Exactly. You can do stuff like that. And then there's a lot of different, now some of the attacks I thought were pretty, okay. I don't think you guys thought this through. Like for example, So Sonya has one where she shoots her ring, but it's a summon, so you stand at back while she shoots her ring. I don't know if that does anything for anybody. It seems pretty lame, but you
Okay.
can't all be winners. They're not all great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the nature of kind of like the assist thing, like John said, like, even in like uh the versus games like Ultimate Marvel 3, right? It was just like you had the ABC assist or whatever to pick from it. People always pick, a certain one. There was always one that just seemed like, what's the utility of this at all? Until somebody
Yeah,
finds like some tech or something, just like, oh, this is what it's for. Or
yeah,
this is,
for
better
sure.
better against for projectile what do they call it? Durability or something like that.
But at
Yeah,
least in this one, you have all three available at the same time. So it's like you don't
Yeah.
have to like, oh, I'm
also
gonna pick
cool.
the one attack, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that we were talking about the variant system in previous or in previous iterations of Mortal Kombat.
Mhm.
So to be clear, in Mortal Kombat 1, there is no variant system. They just have everything. So
Yep, you're just
essentially, oh, go ahead.
your character. Yeah,
Okay.
like you pick your character, they have all their moves. There's no variation to pick or anything like that. So
Okay. So
Oh,
then
okay.
the assist is essentially the replacement for that variant system, where you can essentially play your character a different way by changing the assists that you have.
yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty much what it does because it is going to change. What attacks will be effective. Like I mentioned, the Sub Zero thing with his
Mhm.
wake up, and he gets if he has the Sonya cameo. So yeah, there's definitely it's like an added little thing you can add. But the characters are definitely very full. Like Kenshi is a full on puppet character, so he has a ghost that comes out, and you can do things like he's on one side, the other one's on the other side, and you do a big low, and the other thing hits you overhead, and then you lose like 40%. Like you could do that, and that's just on its own. That's before all the cameo nonsense comes in. So
So to me, that seems like it's addressing an issue about player expression, where it's like, hey, I want to have multiple ways to play the character, which is what the variant system I think was trying to address as well. Um, but I know with competitive play, we have a tendency to min max everything, and
yeah,
so like for example, like in Street Fighter Third Strike, right? There's super arts, and you can have your choice for player expression, but realistically, everybody always picks SA2 for Chun or SA3 for Ken or Genei for Yun, right? Um, do you think that obviously it's a stress test and the game's not out and stuff like that? From what you saw, do you think that there's like an objective best assist for a specific character to the point where you only want to play that assist with that character? Do you see that as a future for this game, a potential future?
it could. It could. Now, this is obviously just based on the stress test. I felt like Kano was definitely the assist you wanted to pick because he had one where he threw both of his knives and it was a salt assist, so you could call it whatever. Really good combo extender because it lasted like 10 years and you could run up and do pretty much whatever you wanted. Then he had the Kano ball, which was a good like assist move. And so I felt like he generally was the best. But if they're gonna be creative as they are with Kung Lao and Scorpion, and there's like wacky moves that aren't just like combo extenders,
Yeah.
then that changes everything. Because then if there's that, level of creativity or whatever, I can't really say like a combo extender is always going to be the best thing. Because that's just like with variations. You were going to pick the one with the launcher most of the time. Like
Yeah.
reasonably, there wasn't really a reason to pick it unless it was super busted. But if there are such good options like Johnny, if you see in the footage that we're watching, Johnny Cage can extend his combos with the teleport because
Yeah.
he has that. But he can combo off his shadow kick with the Kung Lao low hat. So it's like that's pretty good. I would have that over like Kano or something like that. But it's all going to depend on what's available, what is going to work. But if they're going to be creative in the way they are with like escape style assists or cameos,
Hmm.
then that changes my mind for sure. But I kind of thought in this stress test that Kano had most of the things you want. Jax at the ground pound is good, but his other ones weren't so great.
Okay.
Sonya the same thing. Like her square wave was good. The other ones are okay. But that's just going to happen too. Like the nature of balance is such that people are going to, like you said, min max, get the
Yeah.
best thing they can pick. But I think if they're creative enough and they have ones that do like really specific, unique stuff, you're going to find a way to use those that are pretty advantageous. I imagine. Like I imagine there's no character that is going to be a zoner that doesn't want that scorpion
Yeah.
to get out of, to have an armored attack that moves you backwards, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the dream.
Yeah.
I Yeah, and honestly, that presents a lot of unique challenges for balance patches too, where it's like, all right, so this Kano ball is overpowered for whatever reason, right? We're gonna nerf it, and then inherently are going to be nerfing other characters that are dependent on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And That's going to be I'm
Well,
very, very curious about how they approach that.
I don't know if they'll be dependent on it so much as like, because I think the thing with the cameos, like you said, we're playing with like full characters now. It's not even like Marvel where they have like a truncated move set, you know, that fits into ABC or whatever. They're like full Mortal Kombat characters plus the cameo. So it's like, I don't know if they're going to be dependent on, like, it'll suck, you know, if you have like a cameo you prefer and it gets nerfed. But my guess is you'll find some way to get around it, or you're going to have ones that you prefer in certain matchups against certain characters.
Yeah,
for the most part, you're always going to have a wheelhouse because the cameo, it's not like you have to learn how to use it that hard, right? It's only 3 moves.
Yeah,
It's not that complicated.
That's the other side. Like if I think about Dragon Ball as a good example, where it's like, hey, they nerfed my character to nerf his assist or whatever. They nerfed my character. Now I have to add another. I have to play a completely different character now if I want to use their new assist, right?
Right.
Versus a cameo where it's just like, yeah, they nerfed the assist. I'm still playing. Fundamentally, I'm still playing the same game and playing my character, but now I get to try new things because I had to try a new character. Like it's it's lower impact. I think what you're saying.
You nerf Gustav Flame. I'm never touching Tron again. You'll never see me do jumping H again.
Yeah,
you know, it'll never happen. So that's kind of the way we saw in Marvel, right? Like, or like She-Hulk, right? Like, oh, She-Hulk's assist isn't good anymore. Well, you'll never see me mash crouching light again.
Yeah.
And so they would just not play the character anymore. The character completely fall off. But cameos, like, they can't fall off, right? Like, it's not like, oh, well, you're never going to play the cameo character again. It's like, well, you could, just won't be as good. So yeah, that's pretty interesting too to think about. Like, it's not like you have to learn how to play the assist that's really good and play the character behind it.
Yeah, you just not as much
play your
character.
Player. Yeah, you would prefer to learn your character before everything else, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I want to say, you mentioned Johnny Cage earlier, and on the footage that's playing in the background right here, I saw the new Mission Impossible movie last night, and I saw Tom Cruise like hauling ass like in 5 different countries. That's basically what those movies are, and that looks very similar to Tom Cruise. Johnny Cage looks like Tom Cruise. I think
he does. Yeah. He looks a little older. Yeah, he looks a little bit older in this game, and he definitely. So Johnny Cage, the coolest thing about him that they've talked about is he has his own little bar at the bottom of the screen. It's a star.
Yeah.
And anytime he does a move, he can choose to do a taunt at the end of it. So like when he does his nut punch, if you hold it, he just actually looks at the camera and pulls his glasses down and winks at the camera, and that gives him like half a star meter. Now they're risky because they're super recovery. So it's like, if you catch him, you could hit him. But once that thing is full, the star is full, he activates you can activate this thing called I think it's called like superstar mode or something. And his spotlight shines on him, and he can then cancel all his special moves into more special moves. So what you'll see in the footage is he does a nut punch, and then he cancels into another one, and he cancels into another one, and then he cancels into his cameo, and he gets a huge combo out of it.
There it goes. There it goes.
Yep.
That's funny. It's funny. We started the podcast talking about Honda, and John was talking about seeing the light, and Honda's got to praise the sun, and here we go, Johnny Cage having the spotlight on him, and he gets enhanced.
Yeah, because he has like
some combos.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's actually he gets V'ism. Yeah, it's actually what happens. Yeah.
It's good.
So that's the kind of creativity you see. Like Johnny Cage has always very much been a straightforward character almost anytime he's in the games. But now they were like, you know what? He doesn't have force ball anymore. His fireball. They just doesn't have it.
Oh,
they decided. Right. So in the lore, Johnny Cage is the descendant of a Mediterranean cult that had powers, like magic powers. So that's why he can throw. Yeah.
I thought he was an action star.
Well, he is, but also like I don't know if you've ever seen Johnny Cage. He's always had a move called the force ball, which is like a fireball, a green fireball.
Yeah, the one that throws low, and then you can throw the high arcing one.
Yeah. So he's always had that move, and the lore reason they invented an MK9 was he's a descendant of a Mediterranean cult that had powers that they call it green energy, literally. So that's why he turns green.
Oh, okay.
And so he's always had that. And now in this game, they were like, well, the new timeline, he just doesn't. So you don't see him. He doesn't have green around his shadow kick. He doesn't have a fireball. Like he doesn't have those powers anymore. So instead they were like, well, we got to make him flashy. So now he can taunt and get this super powered mode where he can cancel all his special moves into one another.
Is he still in a cult like Tom Cruise?
He might be. Actually, that would be pretty bold. Now he's a Scientologist.
David podcast is going to get shut down by Scientology legal.
Come on now.
Yeah, John's reaction was just great. You're like Mediterranean cult, and he said, "What?"
Yeah, come on. Yeah, I hate to break it to you, but yeah, he was in. Well, he wasn't in it, but he's a descendant of it.
Oh man.
Actually, I think they said subterranean and not Mediterranean, but I just because they do that in the MK1 movie where
Oh.
Goro tells Kano he's part of a subterranean race, and Kano goes, "Oh yeah, so like underground or something like that," and Goro goes, "Yes, something like that." Also, Goro cameo assist. He was in
Oh,
the first
really?
trailer. Yes, Goro is a cameo character.
Oh
He does
yeah.
punch walk.
That's
Do you know what punch walk is? It was a huge meme in the Mortal Kombat community.
nope.
So in MKX, Goro has this move where he literally just walks forward and with all his arms is punching, and it's called punch walk. That's like the name of the move.
That's
And,
awesome.
and they would spam it in the chat. And the best part about it was like -2 on block, and the EX version had armor. So a ton of time you would see punch walk into armored punch walk, and they were both safe. So it's like
Hey,
We were
he
talking
wasn't a
about
very
Honda earlier.
yeah, exactly. He was
Yeah.
Honda. That's exactly what it was. It was like he wasn't a great character, but punch walk into punch walk was a huge mind fuck. Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
so earlier we were talking about Mortal Kombat 11 and some of the negative reception that it received for some of the mechanics.
Mhm.
Do you think that Mortal Kombat 1 do you think that they had a conscious effort in addressing some of those issues, or is like up till now we've kind of talked about all the new stuff they've added, but
Mhm.
like did they take any feedback, or does it seem like they're showing intention to trying to fix some of the problems from MK11?
Well, breakaway doesn't exist anymore, so I'd say that's the number one.
Yeah,
They've
just
admitted,
rip it out entirely.
they're back
Okay.
to so you have 3 bars on the bottom,
yeah.
and you have when you break her, it uses all 3 bars and your cameo.
Oh wow,
jeez.
really?
Yeah,
In
so
MK9,
Okay.
yeah, it used 2, right? Wasn't it 2?
It previously has always used 2, and then in
Yeah.
MKX they added it was like I think it took your stamina bar too.
Oh,
I think so. It's been a long time, but there was
yeah.
another cost to it, and now in MK11 it's like or MK1 it's the ultimate committal. Like you have to use everything you have.
Okay.
So there's that. And also I didn't mention it when I was talking about the critiques. There was a lot of people that didn't like the fatal blow system. So fatal blow in MK11 is you get to about 25%, and now you have access to a super move that you press with both triggers. So it's a 2-button move, and it's armored. A lot of them are very fast. A lot of them can be done on reaction to certain things. There is no visual cue that it's happening. It just happens.
Okay.
A lot of people didn't like that. They weren't a huge fan of it.
You
Now
mean
you only
the
got one.
competitive fighting game community didn't like a comeback mechanic?
No, they
I had
absolutely shockingly. I know, right?
never.
UMVC3 was the most well received game of all time, and then all of a sudden it's like MK11. No, it's horseshit. So what they, so that was the thing, the fatal blow. But now the fatal blow wasn't like the Tekken Rage Drive where it was every round. You only got one. If you used it, it was gone. But if you missed it, you got it back. So you could always get like at least one. They have changed fatal blows significantly in MK1, so they're still there, but now they have, and this is where I can start talking about the Injustice comparisons. Much like Injustice, there's a giant flash, and they go like, "Whoa!" and it like zooms in on them, like much like Street Fighter would, right?
Yeah.
And then
Like
they
an
do
ultra
the
combo.
attack, and the armor is only after that start, after the flash.
Okay.
Oh,
So you
they're
can't
not
just
invulnerable anymore.
well, you can't just see a move and then do it. Like Cabal had one where he literally ran across the other side of the screen like Wile E. Coyote, and he hit you
Yeah.
from behind. Once that move is out, you're just stuck. Like you don't want to do anything because he could just do it on reaction and stuff. You're not going to be able to do that anymore because they got to have the flash happen, and then they got to come around. So a lot of them are very slow, much slower, and the armor isn't until after the flash. So you have to, if you're going to anti-air with it or something, got to do it early. And you have to have your cameo because your cameo does the attack first, and they like leave you standing, and then you do your your fatal blow or whatever. So if you don't have cameo, you can't do the fatal blow.
I'm getting like drive system vibes where it's like, look how busted this thing is, but it comes at a really heavy cost because a lot of your defensive and offensive mechanics are tied to that same bar. In this case, it's the cameo bar, like your ability to throw. Forward throw rather.
Yeah, forward throw. Yeah, and also the breaker. I definitely think there's some intent there, like because they had the defensive bar in MK11 that kind of had the same purpose. But also, there's another mechanic that I think nobody has ever liked jumping in Mortal Kombat ever. It's been the most annoying thing in the world forever. Jump kicks have like the best hitboxes in the world. They're incredibly hard to stop. And a lot of times you can't get huge damage from it, but some characters can do like a full combo if they like dash and stuff. So they've always been, nobody's liked them ever. And they've tried to nerf it a lot. Like you'll see from MK9 everyone had like a universal, because Mortal Kombat started with like every character has the same move set, but there's like speed differences and stuff.
Yeah.
And in MK9 they kept that where everybody does the same like Samus screw attack flip. They all do that into the same jump punch, into the same jump kick. Now in MKX they added so characters have different jump animations, so some are a lot slower. Just try and shore up that issue. MK11 even more so, like jumps, the startup is very slow. Like you can see people jumping. It's like I see them coming, but like, can you stop it? Jump kicks are pretty good. It's kind of hard to stop. So nobody's ever liked jumping. They complain about it all the time. In fact, in Mortal Kombat 11, they made it so that if you flawless block, which was their version of like just guard, if you do that, you can't cancel a jump kick when it's coming down. So it's like you can't cancel it, because you could also cancel jump kicks into special moves and like dial it in, and they come out on block or on hit and they don't come out on block. So you can kind of just go ham with some of it sometimes. So they tried to make jump kicks and they scale more. They tried to make them scale more, do all this stuff. So here's what they added in MK1. It's the most ingenious thing I've ever heard of, because it sounds so simple. When you're blocking, if you tap up, you're normally doing this. If you tap up, you kind of raise your arms up like this, and you do what's called an up block. When you do an up block, jump kicks are full punishable on block when they land. So you up block, you block someone's jump attack. When they land, you just start comboing them. It's a punish.
Is there do you leave yourself vulnerable to every other attack by doing?
Well, so the up block definitely has recovery. So like if you empty jump and they up block, you can definitely like throw them or something, So there's definitely there's more lag time to it, but it is a very simple. All you do is you hold block and press up, and you do the up block. And it's the simplest thing. I don't know why I never thought of it before. Like, wow, that's so it makes so much sense. Like you see the jump coming and you block upwards, so they have less frame advantage when they land. And so that is their way of trying to address like jump attacks being so prevalent, is you can hold up and block, which makes it so characters are going to have to start empty jumping, or they're going to have to jump less.
Yeah.
Or they're going to have an assist covering them, or cameo covering them. So that is definitely, I would think that's the number one thing I've seen. The other thing is they have flawless block is back in the game, but you cannot cancel flawless block into in MK11. You can cancel flawless block into your get up attacks, which were an invulnerable kind of knockback move and an uppercut that launched you. So what you'd see a lot of times is you'd get in a war, you'd be at -4 or whatever, and you'd tap block, and if somebody poked you back like they were supposed to, you would get the flawless block, and then you could uppercut them and do a combo. Combo was scaled, it was expensive, but it was really annoying. So now you can't do that. Flawless block, it still happens, but all it does is reduce the chip damage. So if you're in a fireball war and you flawless block, you don't take chip damage.
Okay.
Kind of like, parry, honestly.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like parry.
Yeah. So flawless block basically is there to mitigate chip damage, but it is no longer and also I don't think there's going to be you flawless blocked and now they're -12 when they were normally -2. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. I think it is just a mechanic to save yourself some chip damage, because everything chips in Mortal Kombat. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's true too. Yeah, even normals. Yeah.
You know what I would find interesting is if they made it so if you landed a flawless block, it gave you a little bit more cameo meter.
Could do that.
That could also break the game, because then cameos happen too often and you go crazy. But that could be kind of a fun idea.
Do cameos do chip damage? Do you know?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everything does everything. Pretty much as a rule. Yeah.
Gotcha. So there could be situations where you could do Jack's unblockable.
Oh yeah. That's I was doing it to people. I would play Katana and just do air fans and unblockable and see if they figured it out.
Yeah.
And if they didn't, and they would just quit, rage quit. Classic.
Nice.
Classic.
Yeah. So we're getting close to time here. So I wanted to talk about in terms of you talked about characters for your dad, right? When it came to Mortal Kombat, when it was Spawn, and then you had Terminator, Rambo, was a Predator, RoboCop,
Leatherface.
Leatherface. Jason was in there too, right?
Jason and MK.
Yeah, Jason was there. So there was a supposed leak list. So if you're listening and you don't want to hear about that, spoiler alert, maybe skip ahead for the last few minutes. Yeah. But the characters that I saw that were listed were Quan Chi, Ermac, and Takeda. Those are all Mortal Kombat characters. And then the other characters were Omni-Man, who's from what's that?
Invincible.
What's that show?
Invincible.
Yeah, Invincible. Yeah, the Amazon show, right?
I like that show.
Peacemaker from DC character, and then Homelander from The
Homelander,
Boys.
yeah.
So obviously, if that leak list is true, I mean, they're definitely not holding back on like the third party characters and bringing those back.
They will never stop that, because I have heard scuttlebutt that every time one of those comes out, best selling thing they ever done.
Yeah.
So no matter what people think, they are the best sellers. So until that stops working,
Yeah,
you're gonna keep
like
getting them.
It's like the Fortnite of fighting games in a way.
Basically,
like,
yeah.
you
Honestly,
get the cameos from everybody, and it's just like,
yeah.
It's
So
bigger
yeah,
than bigger than Fortnite, in my opinion. They had the power of Warner Brothers on their side, right? So they can...
Warner Brothers is also crashing and burning, so that power may be very limited.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that, but yeah. So obviously those are all fine Warner Brothers properties, you know, DC and stuff. And the Joker was in MK11, DC character.
Oh, right. That's right. So, like, speaking on that, like, is there any like specific third party character from like, any more recent shows like that you would like to see?
So with this, I'm always bad because like I know, well, and also the ones I want, I know aren't gonna show up. So it's like, obviously, I want Akuma. He's never gonna show up.
Yeah.
But I could dream, right? And you know, Kratos was already in MK. He was in MK9 for PS3.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
That's right.
But he was banned, so and he wasn't very good, so nobody played him. But you know, Kratos would be cool, obviously. And there's ones that I think are kind of like, this is kind of a far out one, and I think people would be kind of grossed out. But I think Ellie from The Last of Us would be a great Mortal Kombat character.
Ellie?
Yeah.
Oh man, that would be good.
Last of Us 2. To be clear, Last of Us Part 2.
Okay.
Last of Us Part 2, Ellie, the one that is a psychomaniac, not the lesser maniac child version.
Yeah. She could.
I mean, it's like you said. It's like you said in the beginning, right? Like it has to be a character that you know they're
you're okay with getting like violently decapitated.
Yeah, that they got to be able to put in the game.
Oh, speaking of fatalities, your cameo also always has a fatality.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
really? So and they're always funny because they're the classic ones that look silly. So for example, Jax's his fatality is he grows giant and steps on you, which was his fatality in MK3, and it makes no sense. Like, why would he be able to grow to giant man sizes? That's absurd. He's a human. It doesn't matter. He just does it. Like he just grows, stomp.
And that's all you saw was his boot come down.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is in the game too. They recreated it 1-to-1 almost. My guess is Cyrax is his fatality is gonna be the one where he blows up the entire world. And it's just like, well, why would he do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't. So like with guest characters, I'm always like, yeah, I want a Street Fighter character, but they're never gonna let a Street Fighter character get his heart ripped out and shoved up his anus. So it's like that's not gonna happen. But I think Ellie would be cool. Kratos, you know, characters that are in violent games already that you could just kind of easily. And I wish they would open up. Like I think like Final Fantasy 16 is pretty brutal. Like if Clive was in the game, that would be cool. But they're not gonna do that. That's not happening. So and also like I'm not huge on like DC shows and stuff. So like Homelander, I don't. John Cena being in the game is amazing.
Oh, you mean Peacemaker?
So, Peacemaker. So John Cena being in the game is amazing. I would love that. If he's Peacemaker, that's fine. But like I don't watch Invincible, so I don't know anything about Omni other than the Think. Like I know that, but I don't know anything else about it.
I've seen both of those shows, and I saw some of the discourse around it, like Homelander and Omni-Man appearing, like social discourse. And Omni-Man I think fits. Homelander fits as well, but for the wrong reasons. There's a lot of like political overtones with those two characters. It's just it's kind of a messy conversation.
Well, the other thing is they have done this in the past for Injustice. People would leak data and they would put fake leaks. Like they would put fake data. Like for example, one was the character from for Injustice, the character from Middle Earth Shadow of War.
The elf dude? Yeah.
The elf ghost. That was in the files and they were like, "Oh, it's going to be a character." They made that up. Like that was just in there to troll people, right? So I think they know that this stuff happens and like they try to, you know, kind of play up to it. But my guess is like, okay, we can't do it anymore, but could we get John McClane? You know, it's like it's going to be stuff like that, right? Like could we get we already know one, right? Jean-Claude Van Damme will be Johnny Cage. As an alternate costume with his voice. And they're the best because they have money. They're the best at that. So they like when they get Rambo, you're getting Sylvester Stallone
Yeah.
to be Rambo.
Yeah, because the
The
thing
only
with
reason they didn't get Arnold was because he was busy.
the thing with Van Damme, he was supposed to be Johnny Cage in the original like Mortal Kombat movie, wasn't it? Or was it the
Well,
mocap? Was it the
their
mocap?
original pitch for Mortal Kombat was basically based off of the movie Bloodsport. And
Yeah.
for their prototypes, they used Johnny Cage's. If you look at his outfit in that game, it's very similar to John Claude's in Bloodsport because that was their basic pitch. It didn't end up happening, but Jean Claude, obviously, as now a joke, he is going to reprise, like he's going to be Johnny Cage when he never was. He is now also our into Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter because he's the only character to ever appear in Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter now.
Yeah, that's true because he was the Guile.
He was
of the
Guile.
Street Fighter movie.
You're off the air. Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, that's funny too because like that was pretty much like the height of his career. Like I grew up and like Van Damme was like everywhere, right? Like he had a movie coming out like every few months, and then like Street Fighter was kind of like I guess almost the pinnacle and also like the downfall of his career.
Well, yeah, because you read the story, he's like doing massive amounts of blow, and like he's hooking up with Kylie Minogue, and it's like, okay, this guy's going downhill fast. This is bad.
Yeah, and then like he like disappeared from like from
and then
stuff,
he's doing like
kinda,
straight to DVD. It's like riot breaking. Fucking Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal, and Steven Seagal doesn't do anything.
Then he made this resurgence. I remember because I was working at GoDaddy when he was in the Super Bowl commercial and he was doing his like a split thing on the two trucks on the semi trucks and that was a commercial. Yeah, so that was like the beginning of his like resurgence and like he's been back in these like other movies. So for
he's
him,
in, I think he was the bad guy in in one of those Expendables films.
Yeah.
I wonder actually, like Mortal Kombat in general feels like a love letter to 80s culture.
For sure.
like you said, Smash Brothers for your dad. What happens when your dad dies?
Yeah, I know. So like the problem is
when
Ed Boon,
right?
When Ed Boon retires, like what are we gonna do? The people when all the people who are like 45, 50 retire, what are we gonna have now? Like we're gonna have fucking Inuyasha is gonna be in there. Like what's gonna happen?
That's the thing is you can't rely on 90s nostalgia because a lot of that doesn't mesh with the tone of Mortal Kombat. So I'm really
you got to play a fine line. Well, also it's just that style, like that classic kung fu movie, like cinema. Which if you play this game, it's very heavily inspired by that. Like the main menu is literally like it looks like Ghost of Tsushima. Like it's very like pleasant, and there's like it's very brightly lit, and every menu is like a scroll with writing on it, and you even fight in a kung fu, you fight in a Chinese like coffee house. Like that's one of the stages, like a Chinese tea house with very aggressive Chinese instrumentation in the background. Like,
so that's like the kicker is how does Mortal Kombat like stay relevant to the next generation, to Zoomers? Like what's a Zoomer nostalgia bait that you could do for a guest character?
That's the thing. Well, Ellie, people love that fucking Last of Us. Let me tell you.
Some people don't. Not Last of Us 2, Ellie.
Yeah. But
how about Joel? And Joel can play golf.
Yeah, there you go. You can, that's mean. But I don't know. Like I don't know what Zoomer bait is. Like what is Zoomer bait? You gonna put like a TikToker in there? Like what are you gonna do?
that could be interesting.
What are you gonna get Logan Paul to guess? Like,
God.
Like I don't know. Like I don't know what is Zoomer bait. Like we put Monkey D. Luffy's in there. Like I don't know what do kids watch. I don't know.
Yeah, I honestly, you got me. You're lost. I'm completely lost on that.
Yeah, like just give me the '90s guy. I don't care. Like get Steven Seagal. Why is Steven Seagal not already in the game twice?
Yeah,
fair enough. Maybe Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime could be a good one.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
not
it'd have
really
to
90s, but he's come back in the 2000s.
He-Man, one of these types.
He-Man.
Yeah, because we're really baiting low here. Like we got to go deep. To me, you got to get, because they made a WWE game, you got to get wrestlers. Like we need Hogan.
Oh, yeah.
How many people want to decapitate Hulk Hogan?
NWO Hogan, that one. Yeah, put NWO
Hollywood Hogan.
Hollywood Hogan, yes.
Red and yellow Hogan. You know how many people want to like cut his head off? Like the bait alone is like, we got to do this.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, honestly, like I can see them doing something like that. I mean, like you said, like when it comes to Mortal Kombat, like that's been like one of the biggest, I think commercially the biggest, most successful fighting game, and it hits on a casual level, unlike some of these other games. I think Street Fighter 6 is kind of getting there because that seems to be really well received by everybody. Yes,
it's been very successful so far.
It makes me think about like my I have a nephew, right? He doesn't really play fighting games, but he plays Mortal Kombat. He's had some of the previous Mortal Kombat games, and like that's the one fighting game he plays. And then you have my son who plays, we play Street Fighter. He plays what was the other game we're playing? He was playing Blaze Blue, other stuff like that. But like, when we go visit him, like he's like, "Oh, I got Mortal Kombat." So it'd be interesting to see like how this game's received. Like me personally, like I'm not interested in playing it competitively, but after watching the Combat cast, like I am interested in playing it casually. And even my son mentioned that too.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
I think I was pretty surprised by it. Like, I think also, just a quick mention, I think the zoomed out camera, the non-cancelable dashes, it very much feels like Injustice to me. Like, it feels like they started like with an Injustice-ish idea and they slowly moved it over to Mortal Kombat. So I think there's a lot, because I loved Injustice. I think there's a lot of great things to take from it. And I think if you're going to take stuff like that, gameplay stuff.
Yeah.
And even now, if you see now, when you pick the characters, at the character select screen, they clash into each other like this and do their trash talk, just like Injustice.
Nice.
And then they back off. Like, literally, you can watch the stage in the background fully loads when you pick the characters. Like, when they're clashing like this, it loads incredibly quick. The technology of it is really impressive.
Nice.
So yeah, there's a lot to take from there, and I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Do we have a release date yet for Mortal Kombat 1?
September, mid-September.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
actually very soon.
Yeah, there's going to be at Evo, so it'll be a playable version at Evo, and also they're doing, if you pre-order it, you could play the open beta test in August.
Yeah, September 19th. Yeah, that's
September
actually
19th.
perfect too, because like I said, I was talking about like my nephew plays those games, so like his birthday's in October, and I'm in this mode right now where I'm like, I just built myself a new stick, and like I'm building a fight stick for my friend that plays fighting games casually, and like he asked me, like I posted something on Instagram, he's like, "Hey, do you play on pad or stick for Street Fighter 6?" And I was like, "Oh, I play on pad," but he plays on Xbox. Like you mentioned Xbox and like getting the stress test, so he plays on Xbox. So I was like, well, I could build you, because I gave him suggestions, right? I was like, "There's the Hori sticks, this and this, right?" And I started looking at it, and like all those are sold out. So I was like, you know what? I can build you one. And now I'm like in this mode where I want to build sticks. So now my plan is, since Mortal Kombat's coming out like right before his birthday, I'm gonna build my nephew a stick. Like he doesn't even use one, but I figured that's gonna be his birthday gift now. So that's what I'm working. That's like my project for later in the year, like when
That's
that game
sick.
comes out.
Now,
Yeah.
just so you know, it's illegal to play Mortal Kombat with a ball top. It must be bat top. Just I don't make the rules. Like, it's illegal. Like, you will get arrested. The combat cops will come for you. So just so you know, gotta be bat top. It can't be. We don't do this circular ball stuff. Okay.
Well, I have to look for one then, because I did buy like a Sanwa set that had.
Well, so you're already messing up. That's why we got to do these. We got to inform you.
Yeah.
I know we're winding down here, and I have like 2 questions that I wanted to squeeze in. Number one, it was a stress test. Were you stressed?
I was not stressed. The online, best in the business.
Okay.
Never had a problem.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then number 2 was actually number 2 was about the netcode. So never mind. We got it. So good online, basically.
Yes. That's always
number 2.
Okay.
Crossplay. Was there crossplay?
Not in the stress test. There was not. There will be in the full release.
Nice.
It was in MK11 late. Like, they put it in late, and so anytime there's a feature that's added late in the one game, it will just be the standard going forward. So once again, crossplay will now also be the standard going forward.
Cool. Okay, so my last question was, for playing Street Fighter 6 a lot recently, like, there's a big thing, mental stack overload, a lot of stuff going on in Street Fighter 6, meter management, that kind of thing. How was it playing Mortal Kombat after playing Street Fighter probably for the last, month or so?
Well, I think they're very similar games. So to me, it wasn't that big a jump. Like, to me, Mortal Kombat has always been, it's like a 3D game at heart, right? So it's like you're playing with negative moves, and the idea is to trick your opponent into not doing stuff. And also, when they do stuff, it's like, it's because they made an option that they thought they had to cover because they were thinking about so many things at the same time. So to me, you're playing the same game now. Because Street Fighter 5 was all about plus on block pressure and blah, 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 and this and that. Yeah. Now you can do it only after like drive rush and stuff. So it's not so much about that. It's more about like when you're up close, you've got to trick people into not mashing, right? Like you have to be able to make sure people don't mash. And then when you do, it's because they have they're thinking about drive impact, they're thinking about parry, they're thinking about a jab chain that they can't possibly just, easily think their way out of it. Yeah. And I think Mortal Kombat's the same way. Like, Mortal Kombat is about, you do jab, and you're -6, but it's like, I could finish the string, I could stop and throw, like a backdash. Like it's the same thing. It's just now because Street Fighter 5 doesn't really have the big plus on block pressure. It doesn't. Street Fighter doesn't have the crazy fireballs that MK tends to have. Like MK, a lot of it is about navigating zoning. That is insane. That is like something. It's literally something out of a versus game. So there's always that. The string stuff is a lot different. It's like imagine every character was doing the DJ target combo, right? The medium punch, and then the hard punch. Like just imagine every character's like that, and you can stop and it's -2. You can do a fake out. That's how the game always is. So to me, they're actually quite similar. So I was actually, and you even have a block button on the right trigger.
Yeah.
So to me, there's a lot of similarities.
Very cool.
Cool.
Alrighty. Well, we're at time. Do you have any shout outs on the way out here, Tanner?
Shout outs to Edmund Honda, Yokozuna.
Oh my gosh.
One of the finest warriors on the planet. One of the most decorated. He's a champion of his martial art, and he is an artist with what he does. No one's ever been more complicated. No one's thought more about the game than Edmund. So I'd say shout outs, Duskoi, Guts and Des, all that.
Well, that's a great note to end our show. You can find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Spiral Series, youtube.com/Spiral Series, and at Apple Podcasts and Spotify under Absolute Guard. I actually read it from the script this time, and it's way too robotic. So don't like and subscribe. Don't click the link.
Don't say that.
We don't want you guys back. We don't want you back.
What are you doing?
Alrighty. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.